What is going on, guys? Today, I'm going to talk about getting you interested in hunting. If you're not, or if you're curious about it, or it doesn't appeal to you at all, I'm going to make the case maybe it should. Hunting, from a different lens, a different perspective, why you might want to get into it if you haven't heretofore been interested in it. Welcome to the podcast, where hopefully with God Almighty at the center, biblical, Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. I'm blessed to serve you as host, military, law enforcement, private security, contracting, competition shooting, and hunting. I've been hunting since I was a boy. I've been blessed to hunt all over this beautiful country, from the woods of the South where I grew up to Alaska. And I do have a passion for hunting. I really enjoy it. And I want you to enjoy it too. That's at the core of today's episode. Right? And you don't have to. This is not a shall. It's not you shall hunt. Right? It's not a commandment. But I'm going to share with you why you might want to at least consider, at least give it a try. So with that, let's get into it. I'm going to start with what's probably germane and useful to you right now and good for you right now, and also why it may benefit you in the future. But a big one. We live in an increasingly urbanized environment. We spend a lot of time in cubicles with, 90-degree angles and straight lines, and that's a very artificial man-made environment. God made man and put him in a garden. The first murderer in the Bible is the one who built the first city mentioned in the Bible. Cain built a city named Enoch. Just think about that. Theologically, I'm going to let you simmer on that and percolate on that for a bit. God made man and put him in a garden. The first murderer made the first city we learn about and dwelt there. We spend an increasing amount of time in cities, in cubicles, in office buildings, in department stores. And that's, you could still consider that like a real environment, even if it's artificially constructed. What about a purely artificial environment? What about how much time we spend on these shiny rectangles made of circuits and glass and a completely digital, artificial AI, vomit environment? Think about that. Do you think that's healthy? Do you think that is good for you? I would submit sometimes it's necessary in a modern world for most of us. We live in an increasingly urbanized environment. But enter hunting. Hunting is a way to get away from that. It's a way to break free from that. One of my favorite verses, I have many, but one of my favorites that I quote often, Psalm 19, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament shows us his handiwork. Get out into God's creation, right? Get out into God's creation. It doesn't have to be hunting, right? It could be hunting, fishing. I'm not going to say golf, because golf is still an artificial environment, right? That, manicured green lawns are not natural. It could be foraging. It could be berry picking. It could be whitewater kayaking. It could be, many different things. But get out into God's beautiful creation, into nature, into a world without straight lines, without alarms, without traffic and, engines and motors, and especially without the digital noise. Get out into that world. Uneven ground. Clear skies. Get out into that. And hunting is a real way to do that and to connect with God's creation. Now, I want to be righteous in this, and are not to worship the creation, right? That's what a bunch of stupid pagans and hippies and crap do, right? You don't worship the creation. The environment is not going to save you. The earth is not going to save you. God saves. The Savior, Jesus Christ, is going to save you. But he made this creation, and he made us. One of the verses, he says one of the first things in the Bible he tells us to do is have dominion over the beasts of the field and the birds of the air, right? Have dominion. Get out into God's creation. Again, it's not a shall that you shall hunt, but it is a way to connect with God's creation. Creation is not going to save you, but it is a thing that you are meant to have dominion over. You were made as a man to have dominion over all of creation. Right? He made man for that purpose. Hunting is a way, not the only way, but a way you can walk that out. We see hunting, or what we can infer as hunting in the Bible often, and we see references to as the gazelle and the deer are eaten. Like it says, like when if you want to eat meat and you're too far from the temple or where God designated for sacrifice, you slaughter it and eat it as the gazelle and deer are eaten, meaning they were like commonly eaten things, right? They were the only way I know to get gazelle and deer is to trap them or hunt them, right? So, especially in that time, in that place. So it is a way to have dominion. It is a way to get out of this increasingly digital, artificial, smartphone world and get into getting your hands dirty, getting your hands bloody, getting a connection with God's creation that he made for us to richly enjoy. It's a way for that. And I think that's probably the biggest benefit. If you take off organic, grass-fed, you take off all the, proficiency with a firearm, all that. So you strip all that away. Take all that away. I think this is probably your biggest benefit in today's world. Because let's be honest, you can go buy grass-fed beef wrapped in cellophane at the store, but you're still in an artificial environment doing it, right? I think getting into the natural, into nature, into God's creation is good for you, for your body, right? Getting some exercise. It's also, I think, more importantly, good for your spirit, good for you as a man, good to give you time away from electronic distractions and to meditate on God's goodness and to pray and to think about things without distraction, to actually ponder things, to be bored. I think is good for you sometimes. So that's being out in that world in nature is one of the biggest benefits for you, I think, spiritually, for you as a human being, as a person. So that's a huge benefit, and maybe not one you think of when you think of hunting. And again, it's not the only way to do it, but it is certainly a way to do it. Another one is that good food, right? Wild game is delicious, and if you say you don't like it, maybe you've had somebody that couldn't cook it right, because you can overcook a steak and have it taste like rubber. Funny story, my wife, I guess I'll tell the story. She doesn't often like when I talk about her, but I'm going to talk about her here. She grew up, and for a long time she was a vegetarian. And it was because whenever she had meat, they had overcooked it to death, and it just tasted horrible. Like, didn't season it well, overcooked it, made it really hard and chewy, thin, no fat steak that's overcooked. But she loves meat now, right? She loves elk. She loves wild turkey. She loves store-bought meat too. But if you think you don't like wild game, do you know how to cook? And does the person know how to cook wild game or know how to cook meat well? Because, man, it's hard for me to believe that there's a carnivore man out there that doesn't like a well-prepared backstrap off an elk, or doesn't like, wild turkey pot roast. Like, it's hard for me to imagine that. Maybe it's you, right? But the good, meat, the healthy protein, the good nutrition that you get from it, that's a huge one, right? A lot of places, and I grew up in the South, and the South is like, and it's hard for me to de-redneckify sometimes, right? Like, I still got some redneck in me, even though I've been gone for like 20 years. But one thing I don't particularly care for in redneck culture is like, look at this big buck I got, and I'm going to mount it to the wall. Like, I have zero mounts from anything, and I've hunted and I've guided and I've shot some really cool big animals, exotic animals. I don't have any of their horns. I don't have any of their heads. I'm not disparaging you if you do that, but the real trophy for me is the meat. Like, so if the thing of like, I don't care about mounting a deer on my wall, bro, I don't either. I could care less. If I get antlers, like, they usually go to my dog. So if I even bother packing them out, last elk I shot, I didn't even bother packing it out. Didn't bother packing out the animal because those are already hard pack out, and I wanted the meat. I don't really care about the antlers. I left them there. So if you're like, I don't care about the rack, I don't care about mounting some stupid deer to my wall, bro, I'm with you. If you want to do that, that's fine, but don't think you have to do that. I guess it's not a thing you have to do. The meat to me is a real trophy, and it is good, high-quality protein. Deer, quail, turkey, ducks and geese, wonderfully good food. Like, just real food, not like Twinkies and Doritos and Diet Coke and ramen noodles, whatever other stuff people eat that's not real food. It's real food, natural food. It doesn't get any more natural than, cutting an elk up and taking a big hunk of meat and throwing it in your mouth, cooked or not. Like, it doesn't get any more natural than that. That's a great source of food. Not to mention all the organ meats, which you might get into later if you get more adventurous, but like liver and kidney and heart. It's delicious. So, and that stuff you may not get anywhere else. And other stuff that you can do pretty affordably. If you look at the price of beef jerky, like per pound, like the bags you get at the gas station, or if you're like, oh, I get mine at Costco. Look at the price of jerky per pound at Costco. Look at the weight of a deer and then figure that out in jerky price. You quickly realize the value of hunting. Not this year, but the year. But we've made some jerky this year, but the year before, I was still living as a nomad, and the second big game animal I got, an elk, the majority of the meat that I got, we turned into jerky. That's a lot of jerky. An elk is a big animal. That's a lot of jerky. So you can make jerky, you can make sausage, you can do things like foraging and make your own like different flavors of stuff. But man, it's a good source of food, good source of protein. Again, fishing will do that too, but man, I'm a red meat kind of guy. Like, I like fish and I like salmon, but I like red meat. So they're really good quality food. So that's stuff that will benefit you right now. Let's get into more of the now and the future type stuff. You should be able to put food on the table for you and the ones that you love and the ones that look up to you for provision and protection. Your wife, your children, your family, right? As a man, I think that's something you should do. Not just me. The scripture says if a man does not provide for his household, he's denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. Now, I'm not saying you have to hunt to do that. Again, this is not a shall, but right now you can generally, again, go to the store and buy grass-fed beef wrapped in cellophane and feed your family. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what if you can't? You had better have other ways. You should have other ways to feed your family. Could be foraging, could be fishing, you could be a farmer. I'm not much of a farmer. You could be a rancher. You could, raise sheep. There's lots of ways to do this, but a way to do this is to hunt. It's a great way to do it. What if there is no beef at the store? What if there is no store? Like, what if the store doesn't have anything on the shelf? You're just going to be like, well, sorry, I was too busy. I don't know what other men do, play video games. I was too busy in my fantasy football league or whatever, right? Like, I'm not saying that stuff is bad, but hunting is a useful skill. It is a useful skill. It's useful now, and it could be much more useful in the future. And I'm not going to get off into the apocalypse stuff too heavy, but it's also good tactically. I was the commander of a tactical team to stop active shooters. My guys had varying backgrounds. Most of them military, our military, or like IDF, Israeli Defense Force, stuff like that. And but a lot of them had no hunting background. A lot of them were city boys, no hunting background. And I would tell them, you want to get good. And by God's grace, I was the best one there. And I should have been. I was the commander, right? I was the best shooter there. Some of the advice I gave them was take your duty kit out and go kill stuff with it. I've done a lot of hunting with a handgun, a lot of hunting with a rifle, a lot of hunting with a shotgun. But I said, take your duty guns, primarily our duty gun, most of the time handgun, but sometimes rifle and stuff. Take it out and go hunting with it. It'll make you better. Shooting still targets is great. Shooting paper targets is great. Running qualification courses is great. Running tactical courses is great. Running force-on-force and scenario-based training is great. But also, there's something to be said for being a good hunter. Learning how to walk quietly, to be sneaky. Learning how to know when you need to take that shot right now or when to wait for a better shot on a living, breathing, bleeding thing. That's really useful. If you don't think so, look at some of the greatest, military people of all time, both cultures and individuals. The Greeks, like the hoplites and stuff, they hunted. The Romans, they hunted. The Spartans, they hunted. It was like a thing for them that was like important to them, to their culture. And it's probably a lot more than just off the top of my head, like Audie Murphy, Carlos Hathcock. Look at many of the men that stood out in the 20th century or before as being great warriors. A lot of them were also hunters. It absolutely is. It's not a 1-to-1 ratio, but there's a lot of crossover there. There are lessons that you will learn in hunting. Patience, stalking, getting close, following a blood trail, things like that absolutely can be useful outside of the hunting arena. It's good for a lot more in life than just hunting. There's lessons you'll learn in hunting that will make you a better man, just period. Whether things get tough, whether things continue as they are, what we've become accustomed to as normal inflation, or whether they get crazy. Good things can be had in good life lessons, and good skills can be had in hunting. Many other skills tie into hunting. Butchering is an obvious one, right? Knot tying, hiking, navigation, depending on where you hunt, right? If you hunt on the same 40 acres in the south and like private property, maybe not so much. But a lot of times, hiking, packing, butchering, knife work, knot tying, foot care, like really important stuff that you're probably not going to get, again, whatever other men do that I'm not really familiar with, playing video games, fantasy football, binge watching Netflix. Like, you're not going to get that stuff there. I don't care how many episodes you watch of The Walking Dead, you're probably not ready for the apocalypse, right? So getting out into the real world and getting your hands bloody, getting your feet on uneven ground, it's good for you in so many different ways. So if heretofore hunting has not appealed to you, maybe consider it. And one of the reasons I'm doing this is I think it's good for you. I'm here to serve. I'm here to serve you guys, right? I don't do the podcast mostly for me. I do it to serve you guys. And one of the ways I try and keep my finger on the pulse of you guys, the audience, is I do Patreon polls. I did a Patreon poll, and the vast majority, a big majority of you guys that even listen to this podcast are not into hunting. More of you guys were into the tactical stuff or history stuff, and it was a substantial minority, but it was a minority of people that were interested in guns primarily for hunting. So here's a little punch in the arm from a friend. Maybe consider slaying a beast, cutting some meat off of it, throwing it on a fire and eating it like a man. It's good stuff. Good for a lot of things. I think I'm torn here whether to get into how to get into hunting easily, affordably, but I think that I'm going to stop here, close this off, and maybe do that in the future, God willing, if there's enough interest in it or if I think it's beneficial. I'm not committing to it, but maybe I'll do one or a series on, ways to get into hunting, because there's many ways, and it depends. What do you live in, Florida, or do you live in, Alaska? It's vastly different ways to get into hunting, right? So, I think I'll start wrapping this up. I've done many verses today, so I guess I'll throw in one more. Any man of the children of Israel or of the stranger who dwells among you, who hunts and catches any animal or bird that may be eaten, he shall pour out its blood and cover it with dust. Good verse on hunting there. Prohibitions in the Old and the New Testament on eating blood. So whether you're hunting or not, make sure you don't do that. But hunting, definitely a part of culture from ancient times, many different cultures, and maybe something you want to consider. With that, guys, thanks for the consideration. Thanks for listening, whether or not you take up hunting, and have a blessed day.